Joining me now is musician JT Loux, who has a great song called Taken by Moonlight, which is also the title track to his album, which since the last time we chatted has now been released. JT, thanks for coming back on the show. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me again. I know last time we talked, it was right before the record was about to release, so we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. And let's sort of take a moment. I mean, if you're going to name your album after the song, you would assume that this is kind of a special song, and this is, not one of those footnotes in like rock history where Houses of the Holy is not on the Houses of the Holy album, and Waiting for the Sun is not on the Waiting for the Sun album. But you've actually got the title track on the album. Was there a plan to call it something else, or did you always have this song? Did anything change because of how much you connected with this song?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the album wasn't originally going to be called that, and that song actually wasn't going to be on the record because it got kind of put on the back burner because, as I was developing my sound and we were developing our sound as a band, we just kept writing songs, and we'd written probably about 40 songs. And that Taken by Moonlight had, always been a good song in my opinion, but it kind of got put on the back burner because um, we just were so busy writing new ones every week. But we revisited that song and it really connected with Frank and I listening back to it, and we just realized that we needed to touch up on it because it had been like 8 months since we'd done anything to it. So I re-sang the vocal and everything in like 2 or 3 takes, and um, the original title of the album was going to be another song called "Bed of Roses," but we felt like "Taken by Moonlight" was a stronger something that someone could connect to better, and we could do a little bit cooler visuals with the music video. So when we did the music video, we were able to kind of like use manipulate light and diffuse it with we hung these like queen size sheets in the trees, and we put lights above them, and yeah, you can see it right here. And so all the lighting in here is all we got like 4 different queen size sheets beside us and above us, and then above that is the lighting. um, we hung a couple lights on a rope.
Yeah, that was one of the things I want to ask him for our audience who's watching the video version of this interview. You can see the video right now, and if you want to see the video for "Taken by Moonlight" independently, just go to JT Loux Loux. That's go to his YouTube page, and yeah, I thought that the lighting was definitely really interesting because it's not in a way where you just adjusted the shutters and you shot like day for night like they used to in the old days of the movies. It's got a very interesting quality to it, and I guess if your song is called "Taken by Moonlight," it's worth taking the little extra time to actually give it that legitimate feel to it, right?
Yeah, the funny thing was is we were talking about it, and we were trying to figure out a way to record the music video like in the complete darkness. And I talked to the video guy, and I was like, well, let's just put a bunch of lights around it at first. And then he's like, well, it's not going to work like that because it's going to be too harsh, just having these regular lights beaming on our face. It's not really going to look like moonlight. And like you said, a song that's called "Taken by Moonlight" wouldn't the video wouldn't look good if it was in the middle of the day. So
Yeah, if you guys like went out to the desert and shot it at like 1 in the afternoon, it'd be like, all right. I mean, it looks cool, but it's doesn't have anything to do with moonlight. So yeah, I liked the little sort of the little DIY filmmaking approach to it because it definitely looks cool and it matches up very well with the song. You mentioned the band, and I think it's always worth pointing out that obviously all of you are you're all in your early 20s, right? I mean, I know that you're 21 still, and the other guys are in their early 20s too. So obviously, you couldn't have possibly known these guys for a very long time. But talk about how you found the other guys, and give some praise to Zach, Ethan, and everybody else that worked on the album with you.
yeah, for sure. So we met a couple different times when I was like 18 or 19, and I'd played in other bands, and they were like opening the shows in their other band, And I always like thought that their groove and the way they played together was really tight. And when I started doing my own solo thing, I started out just by myself. I was doing a lot of acoustic shows, just singing and playing by myself. And I put a demo on SoundCloud uh, that was just me singing and playing my guitar that Frank helped me start producing. And when I went to the NAMM show in 2020, I was at the Gibson booth, and the drummer Zach, right there, you can see him. He approached me and said he had heard the demo and he wanted to jam. And I had always wanted to jam with this guy. I always loved his playing. He's got that John Bonham style that I really connect to, and I think really is such a good sound for a trio. And I always wanted to do a trio because I wanted to challenge myself to be able to write all the guitar parts, rhythm and lead, and sing at the same time. And so I had always, dreamed of something like that. And so we got together after NAMM was over. We got together at Frank's garage. He thankfully let us use his garage to get together and start practicing. And then we needed a bass player, and he was like, "Yeah, I know my friend Ethan." And I was like, "Hey, that's the same guy that you've been jamming with for years, right?" And so they were best friends. So it was really easy transition to start the band and start songwriting because the chemistry that they had, it was easy for me to just jump on that and start working together as a unit right away.
Yeah, and you mentioned Frank a couple of times, and obviously that's Frank Hannon from Tesla, who you met when you were younger. And before we talk about that, is there anything you can tell us? Because people know that he and some of the guys in Tesla, they had to get off the road. Is he doing all right as far as you know? I mean, not asking specifics, but obviously we want to hear that he's doing well and taking it easy, and hopefully he's back out there soon.
Yeah, I've talked to him a couple times and he's doing okay.
Great.
Um, it's not an easy thing to get through. Like he's had it for about 2 weeks and he's still dealing with it lingering. So it comes in waves and stuff, and we're
Yeah,
just
for anybody that
glad.
doesn't know, specifically, there was an outbreak of COVID within the Tesla camp and some of the band as well. And Frank was one of the ones who he some people, when that happens in other bands, they don't want to mention who it was, and that's up to their privacy. But Frank has been pretty forthright about it. And yeah, that anybody that I know that had it, mostly had it like last year and stuff. But when they did, it just doesn't go away. So it's like all you can do is kind of wait it out, and hopefully he's back at it soon. But obviously, putting the album together, what you guys worked on it, and one of the things that I don't even remember if we talked about this last time, but I loved that this jumped out in the notes. To be able to get to have some studio time with Frank, you actually worked at his ranch, right?
Yeah. So I still do that because
Great.
I'm still broke, but but he's really generous with how he helps me and other people out with when it comes to studio time. And so I'd go to his place and tend to the horses, mow his lawns and do all the maintenance and everything. And then after working in the sun for 5 or 6 hours or whatever, we go to the studio, and he would listen. I'd sit down with an acoustic guitar and I'd be like, "Here's my new ideas," and so then we would put a list together, and then we were able to. He hooked us up with a practice space about like 5 minutes from his house, so I would work at his place in the daytime, and then my band would come to the practice space in the evening. And so a lot of that writing process was like me working on the working on the album, the songs acoustically in at his house during the day, in between the breaks of me working on his ranch, and then I'd go to the band, and the band would make the song more rock and more lively because every time I'd write a song on acoustic, it seemed to be a little more like softer, and be a little bit more melodic, and then when the drums and bass and electric guitar come in, it just becomes like such a different experience, but it holds on to that same feeling that I hoped to when I had first written the tune. And so the process of the album kind of was me with an acoustic guitar and then bringing it to the band, and specifically Taken by Moonlight. I had the ideas for it, but like I said, when we had written so many songs that we just kind of like put it on the back burner. And I'm so glad that like it was like a month before the album came out, we decided to work on it for a day or two, and we got to where we really loved it, and then we shot a music video for it right before the record came out, and it all happened so quick, and I really still feel emotionally attached to that song and the message that it has. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, it's interesting as you were talking about sort of developing the songs on acoustic guitar, you think about obviously, when you go from acoustic to electric and sort of the big instrumentation around it, you can see that a lot of times it's more powerful. But it just took me back for a moment. If you're familiar with Bob Mould, who was in Husker Du, and he had a band called Sugar in the late 90s, I've seen him acoustic a couple of times, and literally every 2 songs he breaks a string and he has to it's because of the way that that he plays it. And it's like, most guys don't do that, but he's like that dedicated to like, he's almost like punishing his acoustic guitar. He's like, well, you're going to have to wait. I have to put more strings on, and it's kind of funny to think about, just what an acoustic guitar can do. And, obviously, you're talking about Frank Hannon and Tesla, their 5-man acoustical jam album. I mean, those are acoustic versions of those songs, but it's not like, oh, they don't rock because they're acoustic now. I mean, not everything gets slowed down, and it is impressive, sort of the the way that you can get the different sounds. And just referencing Tesla, this came up in the chat from Sam. He's excited to check out the band because if you guys play with Tesla, and Frank produced the album with you guys, and he's sort of really been like a mentor to you since you were a fairly young teenager, right?
Yeah, so I'd gone to Tesla shows since I was like 10 years old. There's a photo of me that I spent the whole day making my own shirt with the Tesla logo on it, and I was in like 4th or 5th grade, and I spent all day on it. And we went to the show, a local show here at Thunder Valley, and that was one of the cool memories. But I think I first met him at like a local show here afterwards. I saw him. Set a guitar on fire at the club, and it was so sick. He played his solo while it was on fire.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I'd never seen anything like that, before in my life. And so yeah, I was a big fan of his. And then when I was like 16 or 17, he started like commenting on a lot of my posts, like saying that he really enjoyed my guitar playing. And I was like, I remember screenshotting it when he sent me a happy like 17th birthday. And I was just like, I was like really stoked about it. And so I kind of built a relationship with him over the course of a couple of years. And then when I turned 18, he started working with my previous band. And that's kind of when the whole working for studio time kind of started. And then when my other band fell through, he encouraged me to start singing because up until a year and a half ago, I never sang in my life. So he really helped me kind of like get out of my comfort zone, and that's when I started wanting to pursue the trio and sing and play at the same time. And so that's kind of how it became.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because you have to imagine Frank was like, happy 17th birthday. You're still not old enough to set your guitar on fire,
Yeah.
It's yeah, I mean, when you see stuff like, Hendrix setting his guitar on fire, and it's not quite the same, but the Ace Frehley smoking guitar always looks really cool. And so yeah, I can imagine if you see that as a kid, it has to blow your mind a little bit. And yeah, I've talked to you, and I've talked to Dino from the band Red Voodoo, and I know that Frank is involved with them, and it just seems like he's very supportive, for young talent. And I think it's great that you can have somebody that has, one, his experience, but also just his know-how, just sort of helping you through it. It's really, it's that kind of advantage that, kids who weren't lucky enough to be born in Sacramento don't have a Frank Hannon in their life. So the album is out now, and people can go to JT Loux, and again, I spell JTLOUX.com for more information and all the particulars, and they can find all your social media there. So obviously, it's it's a little bit of a roll of the dice in terms of doing live shows. Are there plans for them? Are there plans that you had and they keep getting pushed back, or what? Even if it's just for a show or two, what are the plans for playing some of this music live?
Yeah, so we've done a couple big gigs this summer so far, and have gotten the chance to go out to Dallas and Texas and play in front of a lot of people, and got a chance to be on the Eddie Trunk show. So I was able to do a lot of cool things this summer. But like you said, with a lot of people, this new strand, and a lot of people getting sick. Things are getting pretty canceled pretty quickly, and so a lot of
Sure.
the stuff that we had planned for this later this year is getting pushed back to possibly 2022. But that's fine with us. We're working on the next record already, and we're just trying to stay focused. And I'm trying to improve my voice and keep finding myself as an artist. But like you said, as it comes to live shows, it's kind of a hit or miss, and so we're just kind of like keeping our heads down, and we're hoping to get on some supporting acts as 2022 approaches, and just kind of build our local following here for the rest of this year, and then, like I said, get on a bigger tour next year.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that that's really the key. Is just getting in front of people, because it's great because somebody comes across the song, they can find you and they can find more music. But it's just sort of getting that foot in the door. It's great to be out there, sort of with a band. I do always try to get to see opening bands. When I go to a show, because it's hard to find the new music. It's if I'm not sent it, from a publicist, or you mentioned Eddie Trunk. He does a really good job talking and focusing on younger bands on his show. But
Yeah.
there's not a lot of places out there, so it's good to do it. It's interesting because I think we did talk about this the last time that I had you on, which was about 3 months ago, that you hadn't really done any singing until a year and a half ago. But I had forgotten that until you said it now, because listening to the new song a bunch of times, it's not like, you think, oh, yeah, this is a guy who is, just dipping his toe in and trying to sing. Do you feel it was self-confidence, or just were you apprehensive? Did you just want to focus on the guitar? Was there a reason that you only just recently, is there a specific reason you can pinpoint, well, this is why I didn't start singing until a little while ago?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so, like, honestly, it was all confidence, and that's kind of what Frank taught me, was to just be yourself. Like, I grew up listening to a lot of 70s and 80s singers, so I never really saw myself as a singer because of how deep my voice was, and I'd try and sing along to other songs, and my voice never fit it. But what he taught me was to just really be myself and just work on my own style, and that really boosted my confidence, because when you stop trying to be somebody else and you start trying to be yourself, that's when you find it. And so, like, my whole life, I just, ever since I was 11 years old, I'd been just playing guitar. So,
Yeah.
and I was scared to sing. Singing is like a weird thing, because when you put yourself out there like that, it's super vulnerable. And so, but the good thing about, the good thing I could say about the whole quarantine and COVID thing is I got to sing to a wall for 6 months, and it
Yeah.
really allowed me to kind of like belt it out, and just like kind of get all the bad stuff out. And so for me, it was really just like a lack of self-confidence. I think that's what he instilled in me. And he just said, you know do it like you play guitar. Just go for it. When you go, like you said, that guy breaking the strings a lot, he's very passionate about
Yeah.
playing his guitar, and he just goes for it. And I think that that really shines through in the music. When you listen to music, if someone's not passionate about it, it's hard for the listener to latch onto. And so it's all about confidence. I think like 90% of it is confidence.
Yeah, and it seems like, some good advice from Frank there in terms of, focusing on what your strengths are. Your voice is not going to be Sammy Hagar because, well, first of all, there's only one Sammy Hagar, but you don't try and you don't try and be Robert Plant when you're not Robert Plant. Two things from Sam in the chat. He just added your album on Apple Music, so it's a happy customer right there. Other than Frank and Tesla, who are some of your biggest influences? Sam wants to know.
That's a good question. When it comes to guitar, obviously, I kind of like separate singing and guitar nowadays because I've separated them so much. But guitar-wise, obviously Hendrix was huge because he just like changed music forever. I like Clapton. I like Robbie Krieger from The Doors, and so a lot of '60s guys and '70s guys. I grew up as a huge David Gilmour fan. I really like the melodic theatrical approach that he has when it comes to solos and just music in general. But for vocalists, when I started out, I told Frank, "Hey, I'm not a singer, man," and he's like, "Dude, nobody's a singer when they start. Like you are as good as you think you are," and so he just told me to start with simple songs. So I started singing like low songs because he said, "Listen, man, you have a deep voice, so I want you to start with like some Jim Morrison, some Jimi Hendrix, some really low and easy stuff like that." And so that's kind of where I started when it came, vocally. But recently, I've really gotten into Jeff Buckley as a vocalist.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I really like his approach to vibrato and how he sustains his notes, and I love the fact that he's. I look up to a lot of guitar player singer guys. I'm not as into like frontman just because I am a guitarist myself. I really enjoy listening to bands that are just frontmen, but when I see somebody play a guitar and sing at the same time, it inspires me because that's exactly what I do. So.
Yeah, exactly. To sort of, I just mentioned Sammy Hagar. It's like, yeah, it's great what like David Lee Roth did in his heyday, but there is something, for a guy who is the singer and the guitar player, and you can see them doing both. And in terms of just sort of influences, I mean, you also write the lyrics for these songs. Is that something you just started doing? Do you have like poetry you wrote when you were like 9 and stuff like that? Have you been writing a long time, or did it come easy to you, or did you just have to, did you write like, I don't know, a couple hundred terrible songs by your mind, and then eventually you kind of got the hang of it? Or when did you feel you kind of came into your own as a songwriter in terms of writing lyrics?
Yeah, so lyrics kind of came a little bit later. I had been singing for a couple months, and I didn't really think of myself as very literate, and when it came to like spoken word and all this poetic kind of stuff, but really it's the same thing as singing. It's singing, and so like as much confidence as you have is as good as you're going to be, because like the second that I opened my mind to the possibility of singing and songwriting, I just went for it. And that's the same thing for writing lyrics. The second that I just sat down and tried to do it is when stuff started coming out. And I never thought of myself as, I was never a good writer, but it inspired me to look into poetry and everything. And so like, but you're right. I did write a lot of terrible songs in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so like I started out as writing songs very literally, like exactly what I'm hearing in my mind, and then I started like learning how to use metaphors and learning how to ways to say things in like a more elegant or a different way, and I think that really helped me. Like I said, the whole thing of not playing shows, it really let me focus on just sitting down with a pen and paper and writing the lyrics. I guess it wasn't really a pen and paper. Nowadays, it's all on the phone. I just kind of like record my ideas and then
Right.
I'll type my lyrics. But
Yeah, it's the same idea, and yeah, so it's interesting that that's also something that you've only really taken up in the last couple of years, is the actual writing lyrics and singing them. You were talking about just sort of focusing on singing sort of deeper songs, were there some Doors songs that were particularly fun for you to sing? I mean, Morrison has so many of those songs that start off really low, and then he's yelling in a way that seems like a lot of fun. Like I'm not a singer at all, but I always like that song, the Soft Parade, because he just goes on into such like weird, crazy stuff, and and he's yelling at the beginning of it. It must be fun if you're working on singing, to go with somebody that was, honestly such a showman like Jim.
Yeah, definitely. And he had the same kind of problem when he first started. He used to have his back turned to the audience. He would face the drummer, and he was just really shy. And as soon as he started, with having confidence, he turning around, people loved his showmanship. And so when it came to his songs, I started out with like really easy songs like "Hello, I Love You" and stuff like
Sure.
that. But then getting more into like Soul Kitchen, and a lot of like stuff on the first record too. Like "The End" is a really great one to sing, just because um, that's kind of how I started to learn how to yell and belt, is like listening to him, because he didn't really have much vocal technique in the
Yeah.
beginning, and I think that kind of was played to benefit to him, because he could play around with his voice. He didn't really worry about the technique at first, and he discovered a lot of himself. And he had the same situation, and so same thing. Like another one of my influences is Dave Grohl,
Sure.
because he went from not singing very much and being a drummer to picking up the guitar and writing songwriting and lyrics and singing and fronting a band. And so like one of my biggest influences of the last 10 years has been, Dave Grohl.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you think about the fact that his legacy would have been something impressive, it's just like, oh yeah, he was he wasn't on the first Nirvana record, but he was on the other two, and it was just like, yeah, that's enough. I think he sang one. There's a Nirvana song called Marigold. I think it might be the only one that he sang, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, and he played almost all the instruments on that first Foo Fighters record, and you're like, wait, this guy can do all this, and it's it's not that it's a bad thing to be overshadowed in a band like Nirvana, but to just get the opportunity to show what you can do, it's a really impressive thing to just see. And the fact that that was 25 years ago, and by all indications, Dave Grohl seems like a good guy. And he had there's that fascinating HBO series where they made that one record where they went to all the different cities, and they used the old studios that some classic artists had done. I forget which album of theirs it was that, but it's a guy who has the ability, but he just has the love of the history of music, and specifically rock and roll. And it's always great to see that. And look, I definitely get that vibe from you just a couple times that we've talked, and sort of knowing some of the minutia about guys like Jim Morrison. That's sort of a great moment in the Oliver Stone Doors movie, when he's like first on stage at the Whiskey A Go Go, and yeah, he's like just got his back to the audience, and they're like, what are you doing? But I can imagine, it seems very consistent with a guy who is a little bit tortured. But JT, it's great to get a chance to chat with you again, and I do hope that there's some live shows before we know it. And look at Sam is just helping me with everything. Some Highways, that was the Foo Fighters album that I'm getting older. I can't remember things as well as I used to. So thank you. Yeah, but that was just sort of a great thing that they went in and they used like this classic studio in places like Nashville and all that. So but anyway, looking forward to hearing more music, and hopefully that you'll have plenty of music to put out there, and you guys will be out on the road at the same time. And they can find everything at JT Loux, JTLOUX.com, including social media. JT, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you chatting with me again.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. And everyone can check us out on Spotify as well. We're growing our listeners there. And then like my main platform right now is Instagram. We do post things on Facebook, but Instagram is like where you can find a lot of stuff as well. But if you guys are into that kind of thing, I know a lot of people are still into Facebook, but like you said, our website, jtlux.com. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and it's just JT Loux on Instagram, right? Just yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of people that are still on Facebook, there is something great about Instagram because it's just the scrolling is like, oh, I like this picture, oh, a video. But Facebook, it's like I have to read,
Yeah.
and
Honestly,
Instagram.
Facebook is more confusing to me, and I talk to people, like I'll talk to my parents, and they're like, "How do you do Instagram? It's so confusing." I'm like, Facebook is way more confusing to me. There's so much more words and text.
Yeah, exactly. So, JT Lux, thank you so much, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the time.
All right, thanks again.
Have a good one.